Hey, Frank.
Are we,
Hey, buddy.
live?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals, I'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, July the 8th, 2021, at approximately 7:03 p.m. We have a quorum of members here in Village Hall. We may have one of our members joining us remotely. They're traveling today. So at this time, I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Williams? Present. Kretschmer? Here. Graziano?
I'm here.
O'Laughlin?
Here.
Nats? Here. Jasper?
Here.
Stefani? Corey?
Here. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much, everyone. So you folks broke the record. This is the biggest audience we've had for 2021.
And 2020.
So normally we have a little bit of administration to go through at the beginning of the meeting, which typically requires us to approve some meeting minutes, but we don't have any to review. So for the petitioner, what I thought I would do is simply take you through the process that we have tonight. And so I know we have Ms. Jill Walter is here. Good evening, and Mr. Walter. All right. So I don't pretend to know if you've been through this process before at all. So let me step you through the way the meeting works for everyone's benefit. So what we typically do here is we ask Mr. Simmons to give us an overview of the application, and then in conclusion, some of the members may have questions for Mr. Simmons. And then we close that portion of the meeting, and Mr. and Mrs. Walter, if you want to provide additional commentary or color to your application, you're welcome to do that. And again, the members of the ZPA may have questions for yourself. Once we conclude that part of the meeting, then we open it up to public comment. And some of you, when you came down the stairwell, you may have noticed the sign-in sheet at the back of the room. We humbly ask that you sign that sheet if you want to speak, because it does become a matter of public record. And for those of you that are unaware, we actually record the proceedings tonight. And so when you go home, if you want to review the meeting, you can do that. And for those that can't attend, they're obviously able to do that. Now, we have some people that are joining us online. They may have some questions for us, and we'll have to double check with Mr. Simmons once we get to the public comment portion. When we get to the public comment portion, be aware that it's not designed for any of you here to kind of be questioning and answering type of approach. It's designed for public comment. So if you wanted to ask the Walters questions, I guess we'll try to be open-minded, but it's not like you see in the courtroom, question, answer, question, answer. It's not that way necessarily. Or us to be asking you questions for that matter. So that's kind of the public comment section. Once we close that portion of the public comment section, members of the ZPA may have questions amongst themselves about the petition. We take a vote, and then that vote gets delivered back to the elected officials, and that becomes the final arbiter of the discussion tonight. That's the process. So before I call the first case, any questions about the process? You good? All right.
Really quick, for the individuals that are participating online via Zoom, the way that we operate with the Zoom platform is all of your mics will be muted. So if you would like to speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you can use your raise the hand feature. And then during that portion of the meeting, we'll call on you individually, and then we'll unmute you specifically to provide comment.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. And this is General Counsel, Mr. Euler, and he has a comment that he wants to offer.
So just a couple more things regarding our process. The petitioner, are you the petitioners? Let me suggest that you should listen carefully during anybody's comments, including the comments we may receive online. If you don't have a tablet and paper and pen, okay, you do. I would suggest you take notes while you're listening to comments. You'll be asked at some point during our process to address any issues that people may have regarding your petition. And I know you mentioned this isn't really a traditional courtroom process where you're cross-examining somebody, but if you do have questions when you step up to make your comments, please feel free to suggest an issue, a question, a concern that you have. We're just not going to have it answered immediately. We'll ask the petitioners to step up at an appropriate point in time and address the issues or questions that you made during your public comment. Okay?
Thank you very much for the clarification, Mr. Mayor. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, so I need to double check something with Mr. Simmons, which is somewhat important here. Please bear with us. We're getting the case number. Okay. At this time, I will call ZPA case number 21, ZPA 06001. This is the petitioner, Mr. and Mrs. Walter, and the request is for a conditional use for a type B home occupation for outdoor swim lessons, and the location is 550 Red Cypress Drive. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, the request this evening is related to a conditional use request for a home occupation located at the property at 550 Red Cypress Drive. Little overview of the property. The property is zoned R1 Single Family Residential District. It's part of the Lions Ridge subdivision. They're seeking approval of the conditional use request for their proposed business of the property. The property was annexed into the village back in 1992 and was constructed in 1993 as part of that subdivision. In 1998, the subject pool on the property was constructed, and recently this year, the petitioners or the village became aware of a business that was operating on the property and provided notice for the petitioner to cease the operations pending zoning approval, as the use required additional zoning approvals before it could operate in the zoning district. So that brings us for the public hearing this evening. A little overview of the village's home occupation requirements. There's a definition within the code as shown on the slide, and the village regulations define two different types of home occupations. There's the type A, which is permitted by right within residential zoning districts, and generally it allows commercial activity on a lot only within the principal building and residential use, limits parking to not exceed 2 spaces, and then the use cannot create more than 25 trips per day. There are other requirements that are required for those types of business uses, but that's the general gist for the smaller type A type use. The second type of home occupation provisions that are within the code are for a type B. These require conditional use approval as they, within the code, have more intense land use impacts that potentially could be applicable to the use. The use would still be permitted on the lot, but within a structure. It does not confine the use to the principal building. There is a increase potentially of up to accessory for 4 spaces, and then the use cannot create more than 100 trips per day. The code defines the structure as anything constructed or erected on a property, the use of which requires more or less permanent location on the ground or attached to something having a location on the ground. So in this particular case, the petitioners are providing a business operation in the pool on the property. Outside of the primary residence, the pool would be considered an accessory structure from a code perspective. This slide shows in more detail what the home occupation requirements are. As you can see, there are essentially 11 factors that are reviewed for types of uses, specifically location, ownership of the property, whether outside employees come to the property, the nature of the commercial activity, size of the use, parking and traffic issues, deliveries, the appearance of the business and the residents, and then restrictions on signage, and then impact on the adjacent neighborhood. There are slight modifications between the type A and type B, again with the type B having slightly larger items permitted subject to conditional use approval. Further within the code, and this wasn't in the staff report, but just provided for reference, the village code does have a specific section for swimming pools, and the regulation for swimming pools generally related to the placement and safety protocols that would be required around the pool as far as a safety fence or non-climbable fence that would restrict individuals from accessing a pool from an adjacent property. There are definitions in that section for family pool and swimming pool. Specifically, a family pool is defined as a pool that's used or intended to be used solely by the owner or operator of a property or lessee thereof, and their family and friends that are invited to use the home without payment of any fee. And then there's a further definition of a swimming pool that it expands upon different operations that may be within the community, such as clubs, motels, or hotels. Also in that section, there is a restriction on commercial activities within a pool or family pool that would not allow for the sale of food, drinks, or other novelties or merchandise. So there was other provisions of the code that staff felt were applicable in this case, but are not within the village's unified development ordinance. But certainly, for the request this evening as a home occupation would be relevant to the proposed use. Under the petitioner's proposal, again, they're proposing to provide a home occupation of a swim school or swim lessons in the property. Per the discussions with the petitioner, the business started last year in 2020 due to the pandemic. As everybody's aware, public pools and other facilities were closed due to stay-at-home orders, and the petitioners were able to provide a service last year to residents of the community for swim lessons and provided those within their pool. This year, those classes resumed. And this year, we did receive complaints regarding the business operation, which brought it to the village's attention. We were not aware of the use last year. And then we notified the petitioners of the code requirements and the need to obtain proper zoning approval. Following that notification, the petitioners have ceased the operation pending the zoning hearing process. As the documentation that's in your packet, they have provided information as far as the overall operation of the school. They're proposing or providing classes Monday through Thursday, various hours of the day, generally from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And or 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And depending on weather conditions, that may move a day to a Friday as well. But they do not offer any classes on weekends. Class sizes range between 1 to 6 students. Excuse me. And then duration that they were anticipating was to provide the classes 6 to 8 weeks only during the summer months. So the rest of the year, spring and fall, and obviously winter conditions, they would not provide the swimming lessons on the property. Historically, parking for the use has been performed on Red Cypress Drive, which is where vehicles have been accumulating drop-off pickup of customers on the property, and then utilizing the driveway and the pool to access the rear portion of the site. Neighborhood impact as far as the code details, there's specific definition within the code as for what the neighborhood would include, would generally be an area within 1,000 feet of the property. And then again, the max number of vehicles that would be allowed under code is parking for 4 spaces or 4 vehicles. Kind of reverse engineering the maximum vehicle trips with a limit of 4 vehicles and assuming 8 trips per class, 1 vehicle coming in and out. That would potentially allow for up to 12 classes per day at the highest peak use. Additionally, the code does provide limitations for impact on the adjacent neighborhood with no noise being discernible at the property line. And as you may hear from the public this evening, there were some complaints that we did receive regarding activity on the property as far as noise being heard on adjacent properties. Per the documentation that the petitioners provided, and they will likely provide testimony here as well, they are open to modifications to their business to comply with code, any conditions that may be put on the use from the zoning board and village board should it be approved. As the zoning board is aware, there are various standards that need to be met to satisfy conditional use within the Unified Development Ordinance, which are provided in the slide. The petitioner has provided a response to the standards as part of the packet and responded to each one of the standards as well. But in summary, the use would not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or comfort or general welfare. The use will not substantially diminish or impair the values of property within the immediate vicinity, will not impede the normal orderly development of surrounding property, will be consistent with the policies and future land use maps in the village's comprehensive plan, and the use will comply with all other requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. As staff is alluded to in the staff report, based off the feedback that we did receive from the neighborhood and also reviewing the zoning petition, the petitioner did provide response to the standards. Staff had concerns as far as the ability to meet the requirements for the conditional use for a home occupation, specifically with the impact on the neighborhood, with noises being discernible at the property line. There are ways that with vehicles that were accessing the property or accessing the use, we're utilizing the roadway. Certainly that can be through the conditions that potentially would be recommended. There are ways that can move the parking to off-street onto the driveway, but staff reviewed based on the internal discussions did not believe that there is a way potentially to comply with the requirements for noise of the property line, and therefore staff's recommendation was of denial of the petitioner's request. However, should the ZPA determine that the various standards in this case have been met, it is recommended that the ZPA recommend approval of conditional use for a type B home occupation for swim lessons at the property at 550 Red Cypress Drive, subject to conditions that are listed in the staff report. I'll be happy to go over those conditions in further detail if there are questions regarding that, but generally the conditions are recommended to, as the business has been operating to date in non-compliance with the village's regulations, would bring the property more in compliance should the business continue to operate on the site with the regulations within the code. So if there are questions related to those conditions, we'll be happy to respond to those more specifically during the question period.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simmons. Gentlemen, questions for Mr. Simmons?
I actually had two. In our Type B conditional use in the R1 district, all aspects of the building, Type B, then B, all aspects of the business will be conducted within a structure, and then you were stating that the pool would be considered an accessory structure, so within it would be within the pool?
Yeah, so the code, that's an area of the code that there's some ambiguity to as far as what constitutes a structure.
Yeah, it's a gray area.
Correct.
That's what I was wondering.
So certainly a pool is considered an accessory structure, would be a structure on the property based on the definition of a structure in our code. I think the overall intent of the regulations for home occupations is to confine those noises inside of a structure or any sort of activity that may be taking place. So that's an area with the language that's in there, it doesn't clearly define if that would be in a structure or not.
I got you. Okay. And then my second question was, on the plat of survey that we got, there was some notations on it. And I noted at the bottom that all electrical must be to code and temporary fenced. So was there fencing or electrical issues?
So the plat of survey is back from a permit when the pool was installed. It's not a current.
Oh, it's not a current.
Yeah, so that
Okay,
was
so these are
one
just
from a
notes
file
that-
that was provided for the petitioner.
I got you. I got you. Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, other questions for Mr. Simmons? I know Mr. Euler may have a comment or a question.
But I just wanted to add to Mr. Simmons' comment regarding the standard that the home occupation be within a structure. The zoning code is that it doesn't clearly define what that concept is in this case. You are the body, the PZC, that interprets the code. So as you read this language, as you read what you believe to be the intent of the home occupation regulations, it is your judgment. If it isn't clear, a term is not clear in the code, it's your judgment as to what the interpretation of that particular concept is.
Right. No, and I had my own thought of it. I just wanted to get a little further clarification if there was any.
Thank you again, Mr. Euler. Anyone else, gentlemen? So, Mr. Simmons, I just have a comment for you. I know all of the members of the ZPA would have received the emails that you sent out to us.
Correct.
And for the benefit of all of you assembled here, my count is that we received 13 emails. And I think 3 were from the neighborhood, and 10 were from outside the neighborhood, from what I could gather. And I'm wondering if you can confirm that or add some additional color.
Yeah, that's correct. Based off the information that we received, there were 13 letters that were submitted as testimony in this case. The 3 letters were from individuals in the immediate vicinity or the neighborhood from that perspective that were spoke unfavorably towards the request. And there were 10 additional letters that were received that were not within the immediate vicinity but were in favor of the request.
All right, well, thank you for that clarification, and we'll enter that information into the record for everyone's benefit.
Yeah. And for the record as well, I gave a copy to the petitioner of those comments, so they're aware that all the comments are received as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. All right, so if there's no additional questions for Mr. Simmons, what we'll do now is we'll turn the meeting over to the petitioner. And if you wouldn't mind just addressing us through the microphone, that would be helpful. And again, for everyone's reference, name and address for the record. Thank you very much.
Sure. We're Jill and Jesse Walter. We live at 550 Red Cypress. First of all, thank you for hearing our concerns. I want to start off by saying that none of this was done with malicious intent in any way. Last summer, when the pandemic hit, I had many friends, family, and a few neighbors that had asked if I would be willing to teach swim lessons to their kids. I have a strong background in swimming and in teaching and coaching. And so last summer, it started off very small. Most of the lessons were just private lessons or semi-private lessons, which were just 1 or 2 kids in the pool with myself at the time, mostly due to COVID, trying to just keep numbers really small, and that's what parents felt most comfortable with. As summer progressed and word kind of got out what was going on, then numbers started to pick up a little bit. I had many people that were just requesting, had my phone number, email, whatever, that would say, hey, I heard you're doing this. This is something that's really important to us, or we have no availability. Would you be willing to do it? Then this year came, and I had moms on the Carry Moms group that had specifically reached out and said, hey, are you going to do this again? We learned so much. We really appreciated all you did. And that's kind of how the process got started. So it was just something that I kind of thought I was doing to help others. I am a teacher and a coach, and working with kids is something I really enjoy. I have a lot of special needs students that come to me that haven't excelled in other facilities and that just need a little bit more one-on-one attention. I know I addressed in the information that I had to submit that we are in no way set in however this is formatted. We're very open to making changes to accommodate. We never realized until the second week of summer that neighbors were upset with us. Nobody had confronted us previously, so we were kind of blindsided to that fact. But making accommodations to having less kids, less hours, less days, less weeks, whatever we would need to do to obviously accommodate others is something that we'd be absolutely open to. I have a strong appeal to teach swim lessons because I enjoy working with kids. I think swimming is a super important skill. At my high school, I'm very lucky. I travel in the summer with students all across the world. I have students that won't get off the boat when we're at the Great Barrier Reef or in the Galapagos Islands because they haven't been taught to swim. 2 summers ago, we lost one of our students at Grayslake North to Lake Michigan. They were out with 3 of our students. One fell in the water. He didn't know how to swim. The other student went in to help him. He's the one that ended up actually dying trying to save a friend. I do think swim lessons are really important. It's an essential life skill. Those children can save their own lives or quite possibly a friend's. So it's just something I firmly believe in. I have a very strong passion to work with kids, but in no way are we doing it to upset the neighbors or do something with malicious intent.
One thing I would like to add is, in the letters, I'm sorry, Jesse Walter at 550 Red Cypress. In the letters, it's brought up that a concern was, sorry, blanked where I was going. Yeah, not the noise. What was I just going to say? Blank for a second. Oh, a concern was the amount of kids that are in the pool and, the noise that comes out of it. But when we're in the pool with friends, we have music on, we have 2-3 times as many people in the pool. There's many pools around our area, 2 houses down, 3 houses down. You can hear noise from those pools. So, the fact of the business operation of the noise piece, that part, we're willing to work on and tone it down and be quiet. But, there's times where when we did have complaints and Jill was, teaching and made some adjustments, no one on the driveway. I'm standing on the driveway and you could barely even hear down there with the kids. So that was one thing. The other piece is that what Jill touched on of the, trying to help the community and serve the community a little bit here. I was really taken aback this year when I didn't think she was going to have that many people, sign up. Now the pools were open. I know in one of the letters, this is where I was going earlier. One of the letters had said, we have swim lessons in the community for a reason, and there's a lot of options that people can go elsewhere. But people were banging down the door for these lessons. Jill couldn't even keep up with trying to fill, spots. And that was with the pools being open. I think there's 2 reasons. One, there was word of mouth that people were really happy with how Jill was teaching these lessons, and was doing a really good job with it. And that was a huge piece. The other piece was it was a lot more affordable than some of the lessons, in the park district. And when you guys know, when you do lessons at a park district or pools, most of them are, high school kids that, I taught myself when I was younger as well, don't have the experience level that Jill does have teaching these. So yes, there's a lot of options out there, but I think that the number of people that were interested in wanting to continue taking this and have even asked Jill to come to their own homes now even and teach them because they want Jill to teach these lessons. And, I think that just watching what she does compared to watching what our kids were involved in swim lessons through the park district, the kids are getting way more and they're actually learning how to swim quicker and better. There's definitely that point of learning the skill of swimming. That is a huge skill that I don't think anyone in this room can deny. That's a huge safety thing that is good for the community. So I think that piece of there's many options out there. There are, but people are still begging her to come, and do more lessons and come to their own house. So, I don't know. We'd have to look at the regulations on that down the road of if she's invited over to people to teach private lessons at their own home, but people want her to teach their kids, and there's really not many other forums right now for that to happen. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. Did you have anything additionally, Mr. Walter? So just hang on with us for a second. I want to see if the members have questions for yourself.
I have one question. So it's home business, teaching swim lessons. Do you have a business license and insurance?
I do not at this point, no.
Okay.
But again, whatever we needed to do to make sure that we are under regulations, we'd be willing to do.
Mr. Jasper?
What were you doing before the pandemic, before last summer? Were you teaching lessons elsewhere?
No, I have taught over the course of years. When I was younger at the Cary Park District, I ran the aquatic center at the Huntley Park District for 5 years. I worked at the YMCA as the assistant aquatic director for 5 years as well. So that's where my background. I coached at the YMCA, but since being a teacher in the summer, I have summers off, and I coach tennis as well. So I run summer camps out of our high school, but I wasn't teaching swim lessons before the pandemic started, before friends and family had asked me to.
Okay. Follow-up? When you received the cease and desist from the village, have you considered any other options? Should this not go through, or just thinking, well, gee, there might be something easier than all this mess? Have you given that any thought?
I have thought about working at, maybe somewhere else, like a public facility. I've done that before. But one of the things that is really nice for a lot of parents and myself is the times that it's offered, and it works well with my family schedule. So I haven't thought too much prior. Obviously, I would need to if this didn't go through, but not really at this point.
Yeah, I think a big piece with that one is, where I've thought maybe she hasn't either is the idea of, we have little kids as well, you know, in the sense of she's being a mom there outside of the few hours or when she has the breaks. And I don't think that it would be realistic or that she would want to go and teach at a public facility where then she's gone for, you know, 6-8 hours a day. It's nice. It's a 2-3 hour window at times. She has a break, spends time with the kids or have other friends over and then get back at it. It's where I think that would probably be out of the question is what I would think would, you know.
The lessons are really dictated around our family schedule. So some weeks we have none. I've had none scheduled because we're out of town. If he's coaching at his high school and he has soccer camp in the morning, I'll only do evening lessons that particular week. So it's not like there's 7 hours for 8 weeks. You know, I might only do them for 4 or 5 weeks, and it might just be in the morning or just in the evening. It really is dictated by our family schedule.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate, but if I may
No,
ask one
please.
more question. Following up on Eric's question, not so much around the business license, but around insurance. Swimming's a high-risk activity. You know, what has been your approach to your liability? Have you addressed your liability at all? Are you just assuming that your personal homeowners is going to?
We have a personal homeowners with an umbrella policy over the pool, but we haven't looked any farther into like the actual business extra maybe coverage we would need.
Have you approached your agent and asked him if taking money for swimming lessons voids coverage on your policy or anything like that?
We have not.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jasper.
Thank you.
Mr. Nats, your question?
Thank you for your comments. How many lessons do you do on average per day?
Again, that totally
I
depends
understand it
on,
varies, but if you had to,
at the max ever would be 7 hours. At a minimum, 2 to 3.
7
week.
hours, and is that, how many people would that be per hour? Or
Well,
how
some
many
class-
total people per day?
Yeah, so some classes are only 1 student, some are 2, some might be 4 or 5. So it kind of, I mean, I guess an average, I'd say have maybe 3 to 4 students a class when you average out the private lessons or the semi-private lessons.
In the whole day of lessons?
Correct,
3 to 4 a day?
correct.
3 to
Three
4
to
per
four.
half an hour.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
So,
So a lot. So like, yeah, so 7 hours, probably about, you know, 14, I'd say average probably around 12 to 14 actual lessons, half-hour lessons a day. And each one of those lessons has an average of 3 to 5 kids in the pool.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
A lot.
Anything else, Mr. Nats? Mr. Williams?
Is that, how many families? So is it, when you say 3 to 4 to 5 or whatever, is it, when those numbers spike, is it one family because they have a lot of siblings, or is it like multiple families coming in?
So again, it kind of depends on the
Sure.
class. So like I'll have a class at 7:30, it's 3 siblings. So it's 1 family, 1 drop off, 1 car. Some of the other classes, if they have siblings, I try to put siblings together. It's just more convenient for
Yep.
parents, which a lot of other facilities won't do. So it could be up to 3 or 4 families. You know, it kind of depends on how many kids are in the class, the level.
Would you say that the
Yeah.
higher amounts are multiple families, or the higher amounts are just because there's so many siblings? Like when you get to the 5 or 6 per half hour, like are you trying to put 4 different families into one because it's conducive to their schedule? Or is it because, hey, there's 4 or 5 siblings or whatever, and they all got to come at once because that's more conducive, which is,
I'd say multiple, probably. I mean, yeah, I mean, you definitely try to pair up the families when you
Sure.
can, but there's
Correct.
probably more individuals than, I don't schedule
Usually
every time.
usually if there's 2 siblings and they're close in ability, I try to stick them together, just because parents then don't have to wait around for an hour, hour and a half. So usually with families, I stick their siblings together when I can.
so there's different levels of teaching, meaning like beginner, intermediate, so you're pairing that, so, okay.
Correct, yeah, I have students from 3 years old all the way up until 15. I even had adults that were requesting lessons this summer as well.
Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, that's it.
So just to be transparent here, Mr. Simmons was telling me that those that are joining us online, they were asking who's asking the questions, and so I'll try to do a little bit of a better job. So for those of you that are online, the first question I believe was asked by Mr. Kirschmer, and then it was subsequently over to Mr. O'Loughlin, and then Mr. Jasper, and then Mr. Nance, and then Mr. Williams. I think that was the order. So I'll try to make sure we get very clear on that moving forward. So any other questions, gentlemen? So I'll follow up on Mr. Jasper's question, Mrs. Walter. I think you said that to compromise, and I'll commend both of you. I think all of us as parents, can appreciate teaching children to swim and why that's a really important issue. But I think I heard you comment saying that if this weren't to work out, that there was another plan behind the scenes that you would be willing to go to someone's home to do private lessons. Did I hear you say that, or?
No, that's not the plan. There is no plan. I said we haven't really thought about a plan, but he had mentioned that there have been people, when I told them that I could no longer do it until we had reached the zoning committee and waited for approval or disapproval. I had many families who did reach out and say, would you be willing to come to our home or to a neighbor's home and teach the lessons there?
Okay. All right, well, thank you. I don't have any additional questions at this time, but I want to double check with the members before we open up to public comment. All right, and for those of you listening online, this was Patrick Corey asking the last question. Okay, so with that, we're going to, unless you have any other comments, we'll now turn the meeting over to public comment. And for those of you that want to comment, you're welcome to do so. We'll take our time and work our way through this. Simply state your name and address for the record, please. And we'll go from there. As the council recommended, Mrs. Walter, you might want to take some notes because at some point you may want to respond to some of these comments. Okay? All right.
Thanks.
So thank you very much. Good evening.
Hi, Board. I'm Bill Anderson. I'm at 530 Red Cypress, which is 2 houses directly west of Jill and Jesse. And I agree, this is not about maliciousness or anything, just getting the facts out here. So the 2 houses just to the west and just to the east, all of the neighbors are here tonight and will kind of give their view of the situation. My property line is about 100 feet from Jill and Jesse's. And I have a direct line of sight from my backyard to their pool deck. So it's not that far. And I've been there about 27 years and combined the neighbors next door to Jill and Jesse have been there about 80 to 100 years combined. So really the bottom line is noise. If you really look at this petition, there's probably ways to meet everything, but I don't see a way to meet the noise criteria, which says the commercial activity shall not create any noise which is discernible at the property line. And in this case, the commercial activity is instruction. And Jill is very good at it, by the way, and she's got a very loud, commanding voice back there. The issue is when you hear it for 6 hours a day, over and over, that becomes a distraction. It's not the kids splashing and yelling. It's just the repetitive nature of it that kind of disrupts trying to hang out in the backyard and read or make phone calls or whatever you're doing back there. So to me, that's the biggest issue, is addressing the noise. And again, I think Jill's a great coach at what she does. She's got those kids, doing what she's doing. It's just the repetitive over and over nature of this 6 hours a day. 2 of us, 2 of the families are retired. So we spend a lot of time in the backyard. Summers are short, so we want to enjoy the backyard. And, if there's a way to address the noise issue, that's really what my perspective is. Some of the other neighbors have some other issues, but that's the big one for me.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Barb Meyer, and I live at 560 Red Cypress in Cary, next door to the residents requesting this variance. If you look at the map, I'm the one directly to the east. Our driveways are parallel to each other. I have lived in Cary for 42 years. in my present house in Lions Ridge for 23, and I was a teacher at Cary Junior High for 25 years. I'm now retired, as is my husband Mel, and we are home most of the day. Last year, my next-door neighbor Jill conducted swimming lessons in her home pool. I found it annoying having to deal with the noise, the traffic, families loitering in her driveway, but dealt with it because I knew that all public swimming facilities were closed due to COVID and felt she was doing something that was good for the community. The lessons were held in the morning, sometimes the afternoon, and sometimes the even. I think they went on for about 5 to 6 weeks. Never once did Jill ask me how I felt about the lessons. Many neighbors asked me how we were dealing with it and told me that they wouldn't like to live next door to it. The first I learned that the lessons were going to be held this summer was on the evening of Memorial Day, when Jill announced to me, "Oh yeah, swimming lessons start tomorrow." So starting at 7:20, cars began to pull up and drop off children. The lessons last 30 minutes, so every 30 minutes, 3 to 5 children are dropped off and picked up. Parents and siblings are not allowed in the backyard, so parents and siblings may sit in her driveway, sit in their cars, or leave and return to pick them up at the end of class. This creates a lot of parking congestion and traffic on the street. Hard for mail delivery, garbage pickup. The lessons end at 11:30 the first week. The parents, the majority of which I have no idea who they are in the driveway chatting on their phones. Kids run around in my front yard and hers. Multiple toys are in her driveway to help keep the siblings entertained. Last summer, I had one dad that would pace in my driveway while talking on his cell phone during the lesson. After several nights of this, I went out and asked why he was in my driveway, and he said he didn't think it was polite to talk on his phone in front of others. He did leave after I asked, and then another night, I witnessed one of the siblings of the children in the class peeing in the bushes on my property. There's no restrooms for students and siblings. Jill is an awesome swim instructor. She uses her teacher voice to conduct lessons. Throughout the day, I listen to up, down, around, together, kick, 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 1, 2, 3, go, nice job, which means every time I sit in my deck or go outside, I listen to this. Also, the laughing and crying of kids in the pool and the driveway. The noise in my yard is definitely impacted by this swim school. The first week of swim lessons this summer, classes went from 7:30 to 11:30. That means 3 to 4 children is being dropped off and picked up every 30 minutes, which equates to 64 drop-offs and pickups. The second week, she added lessons from 5 to 8 p.m., which equates to 48 more drop-offs and pickups, totaling 112. The traffic in a residential neighborhood is definitely increased. She definitely uses more than 4 parking spaces on the street, which is in violation of the home business ordinance. According to the nature of a commercial activity, all aspects of businesses are not conducted within a structure. They're outside in the backyard. In conclusion, we are requesting that you not grant the request to the residential ordinance, as it definitely affects noise, traffic congestion, and appearance of the entire residential community in Lions Ridge. This is a residential neighborhood, not a commercial or business district. Would you like to live next door to this? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Meyer. So we'll just take turns, folks, whoever would like to speak next.
Real short as well.
Is it okay? Do I need to sign up or?
You just have to state your name and address for the record, please, at the microphone.
Okay, sure. No, I was going to. Sorry, I'm a teacher as well, so I don't
There is
stand
a
in one
sign-up
spot.
sheet at the back of the room. So if you
I did sign up,
Perfect.
but I didn't know if there were, like in school boards, you have to sign up in order to speak, so
We're just trying to just go whoever wants to speak next.
gotcha. Okay, so, hi. My name is Michelle Proctor. I live at 1110 Leah Drive, about a mile away from where Jill's house is. This is the second summer my daughter has done this. If we're stating how long we've lived here and things like that, I have a PhD. It's Dr. Michelle Proctor. I've been in education for 24 years. I understand the importance of what Jill does, as well as on the community. but I'm speaking to you today not as an educator, but as a community member and a parent. Was really kind of surprised in the nature in which this happened. It sounds like there was a lack of communication on both sides. My daughter took lessons on the very first day. I'm very surprised. I had a very nice conversation last summer with the woman who just spoke, and there didn't seem to be any tension then. But the very first morning of lessons, I noticed that her husband was not happy, and he went from neighbor to neighbor and knocked on doors and started conversations in which I witnessed for the half an hour that my daughter was there. And I said to Jill, hey, you might want to have a conversation. People don't seem too happy. So I made a very conscious effort to be in my car, to be conscientious of the driving, and I watched the context. I'm a social scientist, do research, watched people's behavior. Did notice on several other that there were neighbors making comments in their driveways and so forth. So I could tell that something was probably not amiss. Bottom line is, can we please find a positive solution to this? Because if anything that COVID has taught me is that we need to appreciate and be nicer to each other. And the way that this was handled was in no way polite or kind. And I was really surprised by that. A little disappointed in the town that I live in. I have an 8-year-old daughter who has a 504 due to ADHD. We have done swim lessons in the Cary Park District. We have done swim lessons at Dolphin. We have done some lessons at the Bear Paddle School in Algonquin. Nothing hooked my kid except for Jill. And so I'm internally grateful, and as her neighbors have commented, she's very good. Like you comment, I'm also kind of surprised by the noise, because I've stood in the driveway. I don't get very much downtime, so I don't talk to other parents, to be honest with you. Like, I'm literally just trying to be quiet. I cannot hear when I'm on the driveway. When I was, that first couple days, I noticed that I was videotaped one time without my permission by another neighbor. I've been very conscientious. Like, I can't hear Jill teaching, so I'm a little surprised by the comments by the earlier gentleman. Regardless, whatever our perspective is, I just ask that we find a positive way to communicate with each other, that we be upfront and transparent about it, and that we find a solution. As my 8-year-old daughter asked me to talk, she was very nervous. She wanted to come, but she was really scared. I'm a little intimidated, it's a group of men. You guys are in suits, so I can only imagine for a kid what that would feel like, right? And I do this for a living. So I just ask that you think about a positive solution. COVID has decimated my kid's ego. It has decimated her confidence, her joy in just learning. And for her to have such a positive experience the first 2 weeks and then to have it end like this, what do I say to my kid? Like, when there's a difference of opinion, can adults find a better way to resolve it? And I will come out of this tonight and she will say, Mom, what happened? And the neighbors finally talk. And I would hope that I can take an answer home to my daughter and say that adults have a better way to solve problems than this. So that's all I ask. I actually have a night class. It starts at 7:30, so I'm going to leave. I'm a few minutes late. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Proctor. All right, thank you. So let me just double check with Mr. Simmons here, because I know we have folks online that probably want to speak.
Yes, there's one resident that's raised their hand to speak. And then for the other residents that are online, just a reminder, if you'd like to speak, you can use the raise your hand feature. Or if you'd like to type in the chat portion of it, you can type there. I can see the messages, and then we'll call on you to speak as well. So if you want, I can call this resident first, or if you want to.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go with the residents that's standing here in front of us, and
Okay.
then you'll let me know that someone raised their hand,
Yeah.
and we'll go with them next.
Sure.
How's that?
Mhm.
All right. Over to
Hi
you.
there. I'm Bill Shu. I live at 540 Red Cypress. That's directly west of the pool. I am just reiterating what Bill Anderson said about the noise. It is basically my main issue. I'm 50 feet away from the pool, approximately. So I do hear it quite a bit. And, if we just get that resolved somehow, I don't see an issue. But actually, it's just the noise that comes out of it. And it's, just the loud, she's an instructor. I mean, she's supposed to have a nice, forceful, voice so people can listen to her and hear her. I understand that. I'm a football coach. I yell. I tell them I'm not yelling. I'm just talking loud so you can hear. I mean, basically, that's what Jill's doing. I would like to see a nice, some sort of, end to this, where, she could possibly continue this if, things are, brought up to code and, things are met, but the biggest thing for me is probably the noise. Yeah, I don't see I'm in the backyard most of the time, I don't see the traffic, I don't see the people in the driveway, but, I'm not the people that live directly across the street or on the other side, but the driveway, so it's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shu. All right, so now we're going to turn it over to Mr. Simmons for the question that we have online.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Powell, and I just wanted to say that I feel that this service that Jill has been providing, I have 3 small children, and about 3 years ago, we had a very horrible accident that happened with one of my daughters, that she was in a swim lesson in a bigger facility. And they have so many lessons with so many kids at all at the same time that your kid is not a priority. And that's unfortunate because it is one of the most life skill that a kid needs. And for them to be confident in the water is something that is super important. My daughter, unfortunately, fell off of the platform, or she walked off the platform. And she was underwater for 47 seconds. Not a single person in that pool noticed her except for me. I was the parent that was running there telling everybody that my daughter was underwater. We had to get a paramedic to come and check her out for water in her lungs. This was in a pool that had multiple guards in it, that had a guard standing less than 10 feet from her. And this still happened. And with Jill, she has never taken her eyes off of my kids. It is a place where my kids feel confident to do swim lessons. And for that, I'm internally grateful because I have really strong swimmers now, and they are so confident in the water. And without her, I don't know how confident I would feel taking my kids to another place for swim lessons, because it was terrifying as a mother to see your child floating on the top of the water. And I want that for nobody. I don't wish that upon anybody, and I feel like in large facilities, it unfortunately is about how many kids that can they get into a class versus how many students can they competently keep above water and really motivate them and push them and make them feel confident. And so I think that that's what Jill does. I understand that this is in a residential area, and I get that. I would hope that, there'd be some sort of civil way of making that this is good for everybody, because it truly has changed my kids and my perspective. Because as a mother who has almost lost their kid to a kid who drowned, like my child almost drowned in the water with multiple lifeguards and multiple people, it was very hard for me to let my kids go into any other swim class. And I just am grateful for Jill and her. And, my kids now, I wanted my third to go through for another year because he's still a little hesitant in the water. We're currently not doing swim lessons because of, Jill not being able to do them. And it really makes me sad, and it makes my kid sad because he always keeps asking, when are we going to Miss Jill's house? So my kids have never wanted to go to swim lessons because they've never felt that confident before. And I'm just hopeful that, we can continue this, and this could be something that, it doesn't disrupt the neighborhood, and, she's able to help people like me and others.
Well, thank you, Ms. Powell. Did you have anything further to add, or we're going to move on to the next comment?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much. So, folks, we'll come back into Village Hall. Are there anyone else that wants to speak? Come on up, young man. How are you?
I'm good. I am Jackson Smith, Blue Mesa Trail 837. I want to say that taking swimming lessons from Jill is fun. It gave me confidence to swim. I never could have swum before. I went to the YMCA one time and it didn't teach me anything. I just went off the high dive a few days ago, and I think she should be able to do this because I haven't heard, once I'm waiting for my little sister to come back, I haven't heard literally any noise from it. And I think it's fine the way it is. And some of the town people have came in and trespassed into the pool while I was there and started yelling at Jill. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Good job, Jackson.
Hello.
Hi, I'm his mom. Kim Smith, 837 Blue Mesa Trail. He was very nervous, and he just came from football practice, so he did a good job, though.
Good job.
I have 4 kids. 3 of my children, ages 11, 13, and 7, have taken swim lessons from Jill last year. It was the only thing they had to look forward to during COVID, and it was, like you said, he actually learned to swim, and we're going to Lake Michigan tomorrow, to Michigan, and I feel confident that they're comfortable swimming. But she does a great job. She accommodates my schedule with, again, three kids, different levels, and she's willing to work with the families to get everybody in. And I was just so happy to know that she was going to do lessons again this summer. My 7-year-old was going to learn how to swim, and we were really excited. I think the saddest thing really, though, is just, again, the way this has been conducted. She, as far as I know, was not aware of any neighbors being upset about the situation. I feel like that could have... We were actually there when one of the neighbors, like my son said, came in on her property, asked me to immediately move my car that was in front of their property, and it was on a public street, so I said, I'm going to be leaving in about a couple minutes, but he told me to move my car. So I didn't think that, again, as an adult, going into the pool area with all these kids storming down the stairs and confronting Jill, unfortunately, I think that could have been handled a lot better as adults. I know that would be something myself or my husband would never do, not when she's conducting a class. I feel like that could have been waited till after class. And again, I've heard that she was not aware of any of that and anyone being upset. So that was very upsetting to my son. And again, to, I think all the parents that were there as well. I think that could have been handled very differently. And to demand people that were there to remove their cars from the public street, I think, again, was not handled very good at all. So I'm hoping, again, as the lady who was speaking here earlier in person, she said, if we can handle this in a positive way. I know there's no swimming lessons. I know a lot of the parents have had lessons scheduled for over a month or 2 for the summer, and now there's no lessons at all there's no availability anywhere. So unfortunately, that leaves the whole summer with no swimming lessons for the kids. But we're just hoping for a positive outcome in the whole situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Appreciate it.
Another one online.
Okay, we're going to go next with the online. We'll try to go back and forth because we have a number of people. But come on up. We'll see how long the next one lasts. But we're going to go with the online, then we'll go to you, sir. It's in the audience.
Our name is Ron and Mary Stanley. My wife Mary is over in the back. We live at 555 Red Cypress Drive, which is across the street and a little bit east of the Walters home. And we have 3 objections to approving this zoning variation. Number 1 is the most pressing. Granting the variation will cause a safety hazard. Navigating the cars dropping off and picking up children in the street is an accident waiting to happen. Even if cars only load and unload in their driveway, which probably won't happen, it's still an accident waiting to happen. Picture 4 cars entering and backing out of their driveway while loading and unloading small children, and this variance allows 100 trips a day. If an accident should occur, I am sure their first defense will be to claim that the village knew what they were doing and approved it. Number 2, we have at least 6 neighbors with pools within 1,000 feet of our property, and one is right next door to us. If you grant this variance to the Walters, then could you deny the same variance to any or all of the others? Number 3 is personal. We are losing good neighbors. We have known the Myers for over 20 years, and they have been good neighbors. It is a shame that they are selling their house because of this, and the neighborhood will be at a loss because of this. We are spending millions of dollars to build an aquatic center within a mile of our neighborhood. This is where this activity is designed to take place, not in a residential neighborhood. If Jill enjoys teaching children how to swim, then I am sure they would be delighted to have her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. So folks, we're going to switch over now, and we're going to go back to online. So over to you, Mr. Simmons.
Jessica, I'm asking to unmute. If you're able to unmute your mic, you can speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Jessica Mustino, 1201 Leah Drive. I have been a resident of Cary, Illinois since 1983. Yes, I grew up in Cary, so 38 years. I am disheartened by the absence of communication and collaboration between neighbors in the village of Cary, which has caused a favorite activity, these private swimming lessons, for local children to be paused. This is not the Cary I grew up in, and I'm extremely disappointed in how this situation has unraveled when it could have been a simple solution of conversations and collaborations to make this work. Additionally, there could have been a modification so the lessons were not every day. But the problem is that nobody knew that there was an issue. It does not feel as though critical thinking was applied prior to complaints and tickets being issued. Is the village of Cary no longer a place where we can be a community who assists one another? To deny children, special needs children, who are looking for a safe place to learn and grow. As adults, we can do better, and we must put children first, especially in this time in our world. I am an educator as well. As a director of student services, my day-to-day work is to best support children in whichever environment serves their needs, including accommodating and modifying situations for their needs. In my personal experience, private swim lessons do serve my children better than in the public setting right now. I have been struggling to find the best activities for my own two children who are scared and worried to be in many public places. As an educator, I'm more than happy to assist those residents who don't understand the social emotional impacts for children during a pandemic that did not just stop when Illinois entered phase 5 and public schools opened. It's still fearful for them. The expectation is that these lessons will be allowed to continue this summer and potentially for future summers, as they provide a very distinct outlet for the children right now. Many who have special needs and are socially and emotionally more comfortable. One of my daughters has high functioning autism. She is not comfortable with being in a public pool at this time. And even going to Miss Jill's lessons caused her a great deal of anxiety at first. My daughter has flourished in her lessons with Miss Jill. She has improved her swimming skills, along with having her specific needs understood by Miss Jill. This made my daughter so at ease, and she felt a sense of purpose during such an unknown and scary time. My other daughter had low stamina, and Jill helped build her strength and confidence through each lesson to a place where she now wants to be on a swim team. If it were not for these lessons, I do not think that my children would have had swimming lessons last summer or this summer, which was something positive and safe to look forward to in a time that was very scary for children. Additionally, not only have my children improved their swimming skills, but they've also gained a greater sense of community during the pandemic, a sense of community that has now been threatened to be stripped away. As I stated prior, as adults, we can do better. We must put children first, especially during this time in our world. And yes, I would allow this next to my home, especially during this time in our world. Pools may be open, however, it does not mean everyone feels safe to be in them. As Dr. Proctor shared, we need to find a positive solution, even if it is just for this summer, and then plan for the future. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lustano. So now we're going to cycle back to the audience here to see if there's someone here. There's someone approaching us now. There's someone coming from the back, and then we'll go to you next. How's that?
Hi, my name is Cynthia Cuthbertson. I live on 36 Silver Tree Circle. I am a longtime resident of Cary, and I want to kind of start with touching base with why I have my kids in swim lessons in the first place. At the age of 12, I did drown in a wave pool. And I was rescued by 3 lifeguards and had to go to the emergency room, and I almost died. So when I had kids, I felt it was very important for me to have them in lessons. So with that being said, I do have 2 boys. I'm a single mom, and I have 2 boys that I'm raising who are very active, and I've had them in swim lessons since one was 18 months and the other one was 3 years old. So we found out about Jill through a website online and other friends who recommended her. All of the years that I've had them in swim lessons, they've been public, and I've never seen the amount of improvement, the amount of confidence that they have experienced in the short times that they've been with her. So right now, as of right now, they are at the age of 12 and 11, and I've gotten more compliments on their swim lessons, their safety around the water. I've even seen my youngest one kind of help others in certain situations or be more aware of their surroundings since he has been with Jill. I do also want to say that both of my children, one of them has ADHD. The other one is on the spectrum of ADHD and has severe anxiety. And with the time that I've seen them with her, both of them have developed a trust that I have never seen with anybody. In fact, to this day, they still ask about her and why they're not in lessons. And they're both very concerned about why this is being shut down. So with the pandemic was even worse on them. And then when we found lessons, it was like an explosion of, wow, we finally got something to do, you know what I mean? And then this year we signed them up and then it stopped. The hard part for me is the way that it was stopped. My kids were looking forward to being with her because, again, this is a person in the community that they trust, and the way that it was brought upon her was a surprise. I was one of the witnesses to that very first day that this all was presented, and I was even yelled at in the parking in her driveway as well. And from her driveway to the pool, we cannot hear them. I don't even know what's going on down there because we try to keep distance. On the other hand, we're accommodating. I think every single parent that I've ever met in this community has always been accommodating to anything that is presented to them. I've not met anybody that's not willing to work with her. So I do say I'm here on behalf of her. I feel like it's something that she believes in. And she's doing amazing things with some students that I know who have severe disabilities or who have anxiety. And in my own personal experience with her, I've seen crazy improvement in both of my children. So that's it. And thank you for allowing us to speak on behalf of our children and being here. So that's it. I hope that there is a positive solution to this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to go with this young lady here. Hi, good evening.
I'm Julie Helms, and we live at 570 Red Cypress, which is 2 East. And I don't think anyone is questioning Jill's capability, and I don't know why the number of years you live here or how educated you are have anything to do with it. But I think first, and most of our neighbors have said, is the safety issues and legal issues. And knowing now how many special needs kids there are, it seems like that's even a higher risk. I know my kids that drive will always go the opposite way out of the neighborhood because there's cars on both sides, there's a lot of traffic, and they're worried, as I am, that kids are just all playing in the front yard and others' front yard, and they're darting out. Who knows if they're going to just come out. So I think for us, the main issue, we're, like I said, 2 down. The noise has not been an issue for us, but I think the safety has been the biggest issue. We just don't feel comfortable even driving that way during swim lessons because of fear of hitting any of the siblings or anything that happens that way. So.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. So let me do a little bit of a pulse check here. There's a gentleman coming from the back of the room, and I need to double check with Mr. Simmons and see if there's others online that want to speak.
No individuals have raised their hand at this point.
Okay, and just before you speak, I just want to do a pulse check. How many more want to speak? Let's see, 1. Okay, so 2. Okay, very good. Proceed, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Cameron Blair. I live at 36 Silver Tree Circle. I am Cindy's son. And from years of doing swim lessons, I felt more confident in Jill's classes because at like swimming pools, for instance, there's always that one kid that does like a million flips off of the diving board and one-ups every single person. But when I'm at private lessons, I feel like I'm that kid sometimes and that I'm doing very well. And I was there one of the days that someone just came up screaming from Jill's gate, and we had to leave, I think, faster or quicker or something like that because of him yelling. And I could hear it while we were still in our car driving away. And from the amount of times that I've been early or late, I've never really heard any like screaming or yelling. All that I hear is laughter and splashes in the pool. So, plus there's never really an issue with parking with what I see. I usually just see parents dropping off and leaving, or parents that I think that want to stay closer to their children just in case, stay there and just sit in their car. But otherwise, since that day that the person came up and screamed at Jill, it's been like 1,000 times more quiet. Even if there was any like splashes, you could barely hear it. And then the parking hasn't been really an issue anymore, so that's it.
Well, thank you very much. So I know we don't have anyone else hand raised here, so we're going to go back to the audience here. I know there were two of you that wanted to speak, so ladies, what would like to come next?
Hi, I'm Jessica Collinsworth. I live at 846 Royal Glen Drive, and my kids both took lessons last summer. And we had previously been in Houston area and had done swim lessons at one of the larger facilities similar to like Dolphin. And my son started when he was about 2 years old. My daughter was like 9 months old. We did about 2 to 3 years worth of lessons for both of them there. And then we did lessons 2 weeks with her last summer. And both of them just blossomed as far as their swimming went and their confidence in the water. But I know that everyone else has said what a great instructor that she is, and nobody seems to disagree with that. I think as a parent, I know that I would be willing to park wherever she needs us to park. I kept my other child that wasn't taking a lesson in the vehicle with me last year because we weren't comfortable being around others with COVID. And so I think that most of the people that go to her for lessons would be willing to accommodate. You know, if you tell us you need to park in the driveway and you got to keep your kids in the car, I'd park in the driveway and keep my kids in the car, you know? Like, I don't think that those kinds of things would be an issue. Or if you want to park only directly in front of her house, which is what I tried to do last summer anyway, I would park directly in front of the house. I'd turn the car off, roll the windows down, give my kids a book in the back or a device, whatever, and I sat there and I read my Kindle. And I think that most other parents would be willing to do any of that to accommodate whatever things that you need to be in place in order to make it safer or more convenient for the neighbors. I know the noise has been brought up. I would spend a few minutes before at the beginning of the class, the end of the class, and I mean, standing there on the driveway, you don't really hear anything. The pool is kind of sloped down into the backyard, and I can't say how far the noise travels if you're also in your backyard there. I know I can hear the pool 2 doors down from us at my house, and music and all of that, and you know, it's summer, it doesn't bother me, that's the way it is. But I think that most parents and people that go to Jill for lessons would be willing to do whatever it is that she's asking you to do. Do you need me to park 3 people in the driveway or 4 cars in front of the house or, you know, on the street? Don't park in front of the neighbor's house or whatever it is that needs to be done, I think that people would be willing to do. So I thought I'd add that.
Thank you very much,
All right,
Ms.
thanks.
Collinsworth. We appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Liz Opwell at 915 Crabtree Lane in Cary. There's no denial that, she's a great teacher and the need for lessons. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Proctor said and Jessica Collinsworth said. I think I was just surprised that it kind of got to this point. This is the first year we took lessons. I have a 7-year-old and 4-year-old. I think it could have been handled a lot better. So moving forward, we're at the point where this is personal. I just heard maybe the Myers are moving because of this. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just unfortunate that adults couldn't have handled it better. I would love to see some sort of lessons to finish out, the other part of July or August, if it's with their schedule. I'd be willing to give up my kids' time for the ones that really need the special needs kids. But if it's just 2 kids, for, a couple hours a day, it's just something, because to just stop it because of the traffic. So we can solve it, you guys can solve it between, the zoning, ZPA and the Walters. If not, moving forward next summer, I understand, it would be hard as a neighbor to see all that traffic in the summertime. But I think there could be a compromise, because I hate to lose this for our community. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir.
Hi, my name's Tim Tomasello, and I live at 324 Bryant Drive, Cary, Illinois, and I'm Jill's father. And I'm sorry that all this happened. I think there should have been better communications. Jill wasn't told that there was an issue or problem. And then the one day Barb and Mel came over to start yelling at people, as they said, and the thing just blew up. I'm sorry that they couldn't come over and say something to him, and they couldn't arrange something to get this resolved so that everybody was happy. But I've heard some of the people here say that there's too much traffic on the road there now. Jill and Jesse were gone on vacation this last week, and we went over there and watered their garden numerous times and their flowers to keep them alive with this hot spell that we've had. And on July 4th, when my daughter and my son-in-law were not there, there were 19 cars in front of the house where my daughter lives. There was people having parties there. So there's traffic at different times. It's not just because of my daughter and my son-in-law. So the one family had 19 cars there, directly across the street from where my daughter lives. And my wife can attest to that also. So I would hope that they could come to some kind of resolution here, but it's not traffic just for my daughter. There's neighbors there that have parties at different times and everything else. And basically, I just hope that they can come to some conclusion here where they can continue to teach their lessons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tomasello. All right, sir.
My name is James Tomasello. I also live at 550 Red Cypress Drive, my sister's house. There's been a lot of comments here about things, my sister being a good teacher and what's going on, but what it all comes down to is a zoning hearing. There's the concerns and things we need to meet to make this happen. I know the biggest problem here, it sounds like, from a lot of these neighbors, and all these people are good people. I know them, they're my customers. I got no gripes, beefs with them. They have concerns, and they need to be addressed. A lot of it's been the noise is the biggest problem with that, which we can adjust and change the noise, the way she teaches the class or whatever. Privacy, willing to put up privacy bushes down the side of the property line. It's, you know, it's already been done on the shoe side. We can do it on the other side of the thing too. There's more ways that we can address all these problems and make this happen. Cars, there's not cars that sit out there. I mean, people pull in the driveway, they drop off their kids. There's not a safety concern of people backing in and out and driving no more than the neighbors having a party and coming back and forth from theirs, from the pools. So I'd just like you to know that we understand there's concerns, and everything in here I think can be addressed. We just need to sit down and talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tomasello. Sir?
Yeah, Steve Helms, I live at 570 Red Cypress. And, you know, I'm here, I don't know how it all got handled from the neighbors, but I know we were not addressed either and told that, hey, we're going to have classes and we're going to have cars in our driveway. I know last year it was going on, COVID was going on, we understood, but maybe it would have been nice too to have us get addressed by them and tell us that, hey, we're going to be doing this again. Hopefully it didn't bother you too much. Communication goes two ways.
Thank you very much. So I'm just double checking with Mr. Simmons to see if anyone's joined us for questions.
Nobody's raised their hand. I'll just reiterate, if the individuals that are joining via Zoom online, the 2 individuals that spoke thus far, but the other 13 individuals that are interested in participating, can use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, or if you want to type your name in as a comment section, that'll be able to call on you as well.
And was there anyone else in the room that wanted to speak? So, Mr. and Mrs. Walter, I'm not sure how you would like to potentially proceed here, but as council suggested earlier, I saw you taking notes, I was taking notes, and I think there were a number of issues raised, and I don't know if you want to try to address those as best you can. Yeah? All right, so why don't we do that?
Just some of the notes that I wrote down. As far as asking permission, I guess that was just in total oversight on our part, knowing that it was our property. I didn't think or never thought of asking for permission. It was never a secret that it was going on. I had it on the mom's group. I put it on my personal Facebook page. It was on the Cary Grove chat. So it was a public, you know, it was definitely out there. So it wasn't anything I was trying to be secretive about in any way. The Myers daughter has been my friend for 30 years. I even asked my girlfriends, how should I go about signups this year? I'm having an influx of inquiries. What should I do? I mean, again, I wasn't trying to be secretive or malicious in any way by teaching swim lessons. When we were addressed with the noise complaints, again, we were a little bit blindsided. We didn't know anybody was upset with us. We did take immediate action. I sent messages to everybody the very next day and said we had complaints by the neighbors about noise, about people being in our driveway. I asked everybody to stay in their cars and to only drop off and pick up. They could come back or just sit in their car, but we want to be respectful of the neighbors, to not be loitering in a sense in our driveway if that was something that was bothering them. Everybody, absolutely everyone that I sent that message to did obey, to the best of my knowledge, to stay in their car. We tried to keep noise down. When I was told about my loud teacher coaching voice, I tried to tone it down, and even asked the kids, kind of explain like, hey guys, we need to use a little bit lower voices, really, you know, trying to accommodate the best that we could. Some of my classes that, you know, have 2 or 3 kids in there, it's no different than when my husband and my 2 kids are, you know, in the pool. As far as like noise level, it's still 4 people. We have family friends that come over, a family of 4, there's 8 of us. That's more than I have in a lesson. So it's not like we were loud and pumping music and derogatory or anything like that. I understand that the repetition might become annoying to others. I acknowledge that. Again, that's a little bit part of teaching and coaching. But we did try to be accommodating to the best of our ability once these concerns were brought to our attention. And I would have made further accommodations as far as making the class intervals, you know, maybe 10 minutes apart would help with that traffic and safety concern, because then one class would be gone before the next class would come in. That would definitely, you know, help with the traffic. Lowering numbers in classes, that's also a possibility of something that we could have or could still do. All of the times were during daytime hours. If it was needed, I could do only mornings, or, you know, or only evenings. Like I said, we're very willing to accommodate if the noise level is problematic. We're not out there late at night, at all hours, on the weekends, or anything like that. I know privacy was a concern for the Myers. We offered, like my brother had said, to put a hedge down between the two property lines if that would help with noise and also help with privacy. Like I said, like we're really willing to make accommodations to do whatever we have to. I think those are the main points that I wrote down.
I have 2 points. The first being the biggest contention seems to be the noise. You know, the biggest thing that the frustration of the neighbors is mainly the noise. And, you know, obviously in this situation, it's our word against their word, you know, the swim parents' word against, anyways, you know, it's just a kind of he said, she said type deal of what people's opinions are about noise. So I don't know, this is a unique situation. I don't know if this is something doable or possible, but we'd be more than happy to allow an inspector to come out and judge that noise level, you know, and even random times, or, you know, where it's not like it's, you know, we're teachers. We know the whole idea of the horse and pony show with, you know, evaluations and be on your best when you're getting evaluated. But like, even if it's random drop-ins, to get an actual realistic idea of what's going on, because I would argue that any pool, swimming pool that has families getting together is way louder than anything Jill's doing in the backyard with the swim lessons. And I think that any one of you that came out there and witnessed that for yourself, you would agree with me. And I'm more than happy to allow anyone to drop in and observe what's going on at any point, because in the bottom line, like some of the parents had said, we're doing this for the kids. You know, this is about trying to better the community, make the community safer, and as teachers, there's a lot of teachers in the room and has spoken, you know, everything should be about, you know, what is best for our children in our community, you know, and modeling that behavior. So that to me is obviously the contention, and I would love to, you know, if this were to get completely shut down because of the noise, that'd be disappointing, because I think that needs to be, you know, judged and witnessed. You know, I know that when Jill spoke on this a little bit, but when concerns were brought to our attention the first time they ever were, it was night and day. You know, I think that the second comment I had, or the second piece that I had kind of on my mind was, you heard the parents, you know, they are willing to do anything you guys need them to do in order to make this happen. And that's how important it is to them. It's how important it is to, you know, the community. Whatever they need to do, they'll do. And I know they will, because they did that week when we were getting shut down and Jill finished up her week lessons that were already planned. The parents did everything that they needed to be quiet and to sit in their cars, to leave. Again, whatever we need to do, we'll do. And I know that whatever the parents need to do, they'll do to make sure this continues. All right, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Did you want to comment further, Mr.
No.
Okay. All right, so before I close the public portion here, I just want to make sure everybody's had a chance to speak their mind.
Can we ask questions?
Well, who are you going to ask them to?
The board.
I think that was part of the comment that I was trying to make earlier. I try to keep an open mind about this, that it's not designed to be a question and answer period between yourselves and ourselves, or between yourself and the petitioner.
It's interpreting the ordinance.
All right, well, if that's the case, we'll give that a, well, go ahead. Why don't you bring up the question? Why don't you come up to the microphone, state your name and address again, please. Thank you very much.
Back on the noise issue, okay, relative to noise.
Name, please.
It's Bill Anderson, 530 Red Cypress.
Thank you.
You know, what is the standard that you guys use for discernible noise? And how do you verify it? How do you interpret it, and how do you verify it? And not like in one instance, but 6 hours of it. That's the issue. I mean, we heard a lot of, you know, obviously the service they're providing is needed, very valuable, but it's really, how do you verify kind of a persistent noise issue? So that's really a question, how you interpret number 11 here.
It's a fair question, so I'll comment on it, but I think one of our subject matter experts, and we have many here, I'm recalling very specifically, gentlemen, when we did my material application for, which is now Rotary Park, and there was a lot of discussion around noise. So we had subject matter experts that are specialized in noise, and they used meters to measure noise. That's how that was accomplished. And we have an expert that's in the room.
Decibel meters.
Yeah. But I'll ask Mr. Simmons to comment further, and gentlemen, you're welcome to comment further, but that was one of the things that we did. We actually physically measured it with an outside expert that came in and was a consultant.
And to that effect, that specific case or the code provisions that are in the code, that spoke towards industrial noise at a property line, and there are specific regulations within the conditional use permit for that specific property that specified what the noise levels would be at a property line. Within a residential district, there are no specific requirements as far as noise between adjacent properties that are established in the code from a decibel perspective. There is provisions within the ordinance for a definition of noise and what a nuisance would be. But from a code, from a discernible standpoint, it would be if any noise would be audible or potentially heard at the property line would be potentially applicable in this case. That if an adjacent property can hear noise from the business operation, that would be a discernible noise under the section of the code.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
And that was the way I had understood it as well, was that you're not talking residential to residential, you're talking business to residential at that point.
But I'm recalling, Mr. O'Loughlin, that it was an operation that was affecting residences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's business to residential.
Okay.
And we have a raised hand online as well.
Okay, I think we have a hand up here online, so we'll go to that person.
Hi. So my question is with, like, if you live next to a park, or if you live next to something that has a lot of people, I mean, how do you determine whether or not that's a nuisance every single day? Or if, you live next to a house that has lots of teenagers? I guess I'm just kind of concerned, like, trying to understand, like, how do you determine what is and what isn't a nuisance? Because what I think is a nuisance would be different than what somebody else thinks is a nuisance.
Well, I think it's a fair comment. Once again, I'll comment on this for you. This is Patrick Corey again. I think if I understand the case correctly, there were some complaints filed around a number of issues, and it was brought to the attention of village staff here, and that's how this got things to where we are this evening. And I think Mr. Simmons can comment more in depth on that, because I think he was the one that was contacted.
Sure, and certainly I think it's a valid question, Ms. Powell. I think from a adjacent use perspective, the code acknowledges that there are noises that are generated from properties that are going to be heard or impacted on adjacent properties. So as you mentioned, the reference as a park or even a business use, there are going to be limited impacts from those types of activities on adjacent residential homes. The specific area here that we're reviewing is related to the operation of the business within a residential district. As a home occupation, there are different requirements for that type of business that would need to adhere to. It's mainly to, the rules are established to maintain the residential character of a neighborhood, and that it will allow businesses to operate within that area, but to make them so insubordinate or less impactful than the normal operation of a home. Obviously, if the homeowner is mowing a lawn, that's going to probably produce more noise than is produced by individuals taking lessons in the pool. But because it's the business operation that's taking place, then this specific section of the code would apply, other than other noises that may be generated naturally by the normal use of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. All right. Okay, sir.
Hi, my name is Mel Meyer, and I live at 560 Red Cypress. And I just want to thank you all for your attention and your perspectives. We've lived in Cary for 42 years, and I know you've made this note that it's just not the residents at 560 that are here, but it's the residents on both sides and across the street. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Okay, so I think, everyone, we're going to now close that portion of the meeting known as the public comment. I think we've bent a few of the rules around that, but I think that's okay. Give everybody a chance to speak their mind.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
If I may, I've been on this board since I was a young man, or at least it feels that way. I would like to commend the audience, people online. This is probably the most civil public comment in all the years that I've sat up here.
I'll echo that, Mr. Jasper. I think, just to let all of you know, when we had moved here, we wanted to move to a place that has a sense of community, that has great people. That's this, right here. And it sounds like you have a gift of teaching children, so I'm not sure where this is going. But, you know, we have to follow our ordinances. That's why they're in place, to protect everyone's interests. That's why we have them. But I would agree with that, Mr. Jasper. I think of all the meetings that I've sat through, this is probably a real testament to all of you. So thank you very, very much. Well done.
Just following up on that, Pat, I think we should applaud them because they didn't applaud everybody that spoke like we normally get.
Mr. Graziano has seen it all. He's the senior member of this committee. I won't, without his permission, say for how many years, but certainly
More than 20.
There you go. So,
I think at this level, I started as a teenager, because I'm coming up on you here.
all right then. So gentlemen, before I call the motion, I want to check with all of you to see if you have any additional questions amongst yourselves or for staff around the request.
I'm just kind of going through my mind about this whole process, both us and the village board and getting assigned to meetings and all these kind of things. They've talked about wanting to work, and I think that would probably be three ways. It would be the neighbors themselves in the village. You know, my fear would be that if we proceed through our normal process here, that it's going to push things off to September, October, you know, before we get to a resolution. I'm kind of wondering if we shouldn't encourage, not encourage, but let them know that there's the option to pull the motion and try to negotiate an outcome before coming back for the conditional use permit.
So what Mr. Jasper is saying is that that would be incumbent upon the petitioner.
Correct.
To say to, I think what we're saying here, Mr. Jasper, I don't want to take words from your mouth, that maybe you want to talk to the neighbors about the concerns that were raised here and potentially request a continuation of tonight's discussion. But that's at the petitioner's request, and they would have to make that request.
Right. I would, and that's my point, is the fact that, you know, they've expressed a desire to work to try and come up with a solution. You know, there appear to be many different avenues that can be gone through, but we're not going to get that through putting conditions onto the conditional use tonight. That would just get way too cumbersome. You know, so, you know, my comment would be to encourage a continuance. And, you know, again, like I said, and it would, from my perspective, it would be the neighbors, the petitioner, and the village going through all the issues that were raised tonight, trying to come up with a solution that works. You know, maybe there's too many lessons, maybe they're different hours, maybe, you know, there's
Staggering of classes for parking. And
yeah, things, I mean, there's a million and one different things that could potentially be done.
I'm not opposed to what you're suggesting, Mr. Jasper. I think it's incumbent upon the petitioner to tell us that that's what they want to do.
Well,
And then it becomes
I'm
incumbent upon
raising it to you so that they can hear me and they can decide what.
But they would still need to come back to get the conditional use.
Well, yes, they'd still have to come back, but I think what Pat is suggesting,
Yeah, no, again,
and I
I'm just
definitely
saying,
agree, is that
come back with a solution.
Let's come back with a solution, pass it or not, and then get it to the city council as quickly as possible, rather than us add, we already have 9 or 8, 7, and we add 13 more to this, and they can't do half of them, and then it gets denied at the city level because there's no agreement.
So let me try to distill this down for everyone. I know not everyone does this all the time. And so what's being suggested here at the ZPA level is that perhaps the petitioner might want to request a continuation, and perhaps the petitioner wants to talk to their neighbors, because we did hear a lot about communication or not talking with each other, and working through some of the issues that have been discussed here with staff to see if there's an equitable solution. But in the meantime, if I'm hearing all this correctly, the business would remain closed just as it is today until theoretically some type of workable solution that was acceptable to all parties was resolved to everyone's satisfaction. So, but that really, Mr. and Mrs. Walter, is really on you, and it's really you that have to make the request to us. Do you want to continue to work with your neighbors to address some of the issues that came up tonight? And how is that going to work? And you obviously have to work hand in glove with staff on that issue. I'm not opposed to it, gentlemen. That's the process.
I would like to make that motion. I think that sounds very reasonable. I mean, like I said from the beginning, we'd be willing to do anything we need to make accommodations to, make everybody feel comfortable. So
Yeah, I know one of the biggest things that made Jill.
Could I, forgive me, please? You'd have to come up to the microphone so everybody can hear. We're getting to an important part of the meeting, and the people that are listening.
You need to say my name again, or Jesse Wolter, 550 Red Cypress. I was just gonna say, I think that watching like this all go down and watching the stress it caused my wife, the biggest thing was we felt guilty that we made people upset. It was nothing with ill intent by any means. So we'd be more than happy to sit down and come up with a solution, and really would look forward to that, to like make it. We don't want to be those people in the neighborhood who people don't like. That was what was causing both the stress, but even more so my wife, where that's not the type of people we are. And we're saddened it has gotten to that point. So we've been more than happy to work with you, with the neighbors to come up with a solution that would work best for everyone. That's for sure.
If I may jump in real quick too, just so you're aware when making your decision, if you want to have a continuation or not, for the ZPA meets obviously, as you know, once a month. So the next available hearing date would be August 8th, I believe is the date it would go to, or the second Thursday in August. So if it is continued that date, that's going to be through pretty much the rest of the summer. And there is the opportunity, if the board wanted to, we could recommend it to a special hearing date. But just from a perspective, that would be the timing that would be involved in this process. So you still wouldn't be able to operate it because you wouldn't have the permission to do so. But if it's continued, then there'd be the opportunity to have that discussion, just so you have that information for making your decision.
Yeah, definitely. And then just to clarify, would that be the same meeting as the judicial portion of it with adjudication?
So, yeah. So there's.
It's the same day, I think. No.
No. So the ticket's a different process it's going through. So that would be a separate meeting for the review of that. Obviously, if this is still going on at that time, we recommend that it be continued following the determination of this. But that another ZPA meeting would be similar to this, 7 p.m. second Thursday of August would be the next available meeting date.
Yeah, it's definitely something we would like to do.
All right, so if I'm hearing this part of our discussion correctly, Mr. Simmons just said that the next scheduled ZBA date would be August the 8th. And you, as the petitioner, will be comfortable requesting a postponement of your request. And you would meet with your neighbors and understand their concerns formally. And then also be meeting with staff in the interim and any other issues that came up that are around your application. And then when we convene next, which would be August the 8th. We would hear.
I believe that's the date.
Let's double check.
Is it the 12th?
Unless,
Right.
And you're saying unless we want to convene.
It's not the
Well, that's a different discussion.
Oh, the 12th, okay.
So, Mr. Nets.
No, I'm just asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the interest of time and interest of the parties that would be meeting, I'd like to pose the question to the objectors: are they interested in meeting with the petitioner? Are they amenable to that? Because I think that's an important part of the equation here.
Me too.
Well, I think what I'm trying to avoid, Mr. Nats, is that I don't want to put anyone else on the spot here.
But
Because I think
perhaps
that,
nobody's obligated to speak, but should they desire to make a comment as to whether amenable, I'd like to open the floor to that. So I recommend we open the floor to that.
I'm not opposed to that, Mr. Nats. I'm just trying to not put anybody in an awkward position. Because what could happen potentially is that the petitioner could make the request. They could go home and the neighbor just says, sorry, I can't help you.
Right.
And if that's their decision, that's their decision.
Right.
And that would be the outcome.
Right.
Right. Whereas here in public, they're put on a spot.
No,
We don't want to do
nobody
that.
has, of course, I totally understand, but should somebody want to make a comment right now, of course, nobody is obligated to, but should they want to make a comment, perhaps we make that time available right now.
And to clarify, the meeting date would be August 12th.
Well, thank you,
The next
Mr. Simmons.
meeting.
There you go. So let's clarify the record. The date would be August the 12th. Thank you for double checking. And so, Mr. O'Laughlin?
Are we still in a discussion period, or where are we at here?
Well, I haven't made a motion to potentially postpone, but I think I've heard the petitioner say that they would.
Be willing to do so, yes. The only couple of things I would add to your notes, just from what I was listening to. One was actually from Patrick. Check out your business license and your insurance, just to be on the very, very safe side of things for yourselves and your own protection. But also, somebody who deals with noise a lot in my profession. Look at screening, fencing or bushes, something to screen noises and things like that as solutions as well for some of your discussions with your neighbors.
Definitely.
All right, gentlemen, before I think I'm going to call for continuation, I just want to double check that everybody's had an opportunity to speak on this issue. All right.
Just
so
one
based
quick
upon-
clarification.
Yes, please.
When you say meet, like we'd meet with the neighbors and the staff, are these, would that be just us going and reaching out to them, or would that be us all sitting down at a table? What does that look like?
Well, I think that really is incumbent upon yourself.
Yep.
You're the petitioner, and I think it's incumbent upon yourselves to really be thoughtful about how you want to manage that process. I'm not your neighbor, but I think we're all wonderful people in this community, and I'm sure a thoughtful approach can be taken to speaking with your neighbors.
Definitely. Okay.
And maybe that's the first step, but this is your decision, and then perhaps if that's the first step, maybe the second step might be to say to Mr. Simmons or the staff you're working with, we've had a discussion, we'd like to meet with you again for our discussion here at Village Hall.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's your decision.
Could have a pool party.
All right. So the chair is going to entertain a motion to continue ZPA case, make sure I have it there, 21 ZPA 06001 to the date of August the 12th.
So moved. Second.
And I think what we're saying in that is that they're going to follow through on some of the discussion items that we had here, including licensing and insurance. Yeah, okay, very good. So, Mr. Simmons, I know that you'll probably be personally involved with this. Are we missing any pieces there that you would like to have included?
No, I think if there's other items that I think the board would like to have discussed more clarification on before it comes back, I think that'd be a good idea just to mention, you mentioned the insurance, if there's other areas that
I did
of
hear
concern.
special needs a number of times, so I think if we can try to address that, I commend you for what you're doing. But I did hear that tonight from a number of different people that have children that have special needs, so I think somewhere in there that needs to be reviewed.
Also, Brian, they do have a copy of the staff notes, correct?
Of what?
Staff notes from the packet.
Yes.
Because so, I mean, you addressed several things in there that I think are really
Oh, as far as the conditions, you mean?
Conditions,
Yeah,
yes.
Yes, and we provided a copy of the report to the petitioner as well. It's on the
That's what I'm asking,
website.
does the
Yeah,
petitioner have a copy of that? Because those are also very, very well thought out.
certainly. Yeah, and I think if
That
if
you and staff
there's,
came up with.
through discussions with the community, if those are refined further, for, if the business comes back, if there's other discussions regarding those conditions, certainly we're open to, those suggestions as well.
Right. Okay.
So let me, Mr. Euler, you've been sitting here patiently hearing the whole thing. Is there anything else that you'd like to comment on for us?
No, if you're at the point of a continuance, that's the next order of business. Yeah.
Okay, so I do need to take a roll call on that, but Mr. Jasper?
I would like to request of the village, no longer being a young man, my memory isn't quite the way that it was. I do not recall a case similar to this in my time on the board, and if you could verify that.
I did, and there isn't.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Never.
Yeah.
Brian, I have a question. I just wanted to get it, I guess, on the record. When someone requests a permit for a pool, is there any noise, anything related to noise, or can someone just get a pool, put it in, permit, good to go?
Yes, there's a section of our ordinance that speaks towards the operation of swimming pools, which I alluded to in the presentation, and I didn't put the entire section there, but there are provisions within that section of the code for generating noise, and does speak towards, noise that might be generated from, music devices or, speakers or things like that. But it is to not create a nuisance to adjacent properties, but it does acknowledge that there are some noises that would be produced by people partaking in the pools.
Okay.
But we do have a separate section of the code outside the Unified Development Ordinance that speaks to that.
I just wanted to make sure that there was something with the pool, because if there's no pool, then you get a pool, there's definitely going to be an increase in noise.
Yeah, right.
So the pool was already there, so I just want to make sure. I did not know exactly what that was, so thank you.
Yeah, and again, that alludes back to, it's the residential district. There are certain improvements that homeowners can make to their properties, the pool being one of them. You can have detached garages, play, equipment, things like that for kids, so that you will have people utilizing their property, and that will generate noise. And the code acknowledges that. The difference in this case was more the business operation that's produced by it, so.
I have a question as well.
Please.
In the case of a use that would comply, for example, type A or type B, for example, if somebody were to conduct a home business where they taught music lessons, trombone lessons, tuba lessons, piano lessons, drums, and they wanted to conduct that business 12 months out of the year, and they would be able to have their windows open, for example, would the ordinance address noise in that situation as well? I would assume it would.
Yes.
Would.
Yeah, so that's a good question from the operation. Type A home occupation would allow individuals to come to a home. So if somebody's providing piano lessons, as an example, they are allowed to have a certain number of people coming to the home throughout the day, and that would be exempt from the type B regulations, because everything's performed inside the home and there's a limitation on how large it can be. But if it does start to produce noise that's discernible at the property line, windows are open, or that type of activity, depending on what type of use they're performing there, then we can, the village would have the ability to address that through this section.
Yeah, I find that, that in my interpretation, it seems that most of the comments related, as we've stated, to noise and to parking / safety that might be related to that. The latter seems to be more clearly defined in the ordinance, and obviously what we're all struggling with is noise is a subjective thing.
Yeah.
All right, so anyone else? All right, so Mr. Simmons, we need to do a roll call on that motion related to continuation.
Yes. Williams?
Yes.
Kretschmer?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Nats?
Yes.
Jasper?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes. All right, so folks, we're going to have a continuation to the next meeting, which will be now August the 12th. And I again want to commend everyone in here for really conducting themselves in a professional way and really elevating the way Cary represents itself. To all of you, and especially the young children, well done. Proud of you. So gentlemen, you now know we have a meeting on August the 12th. And so unless there's anything else to discuss,
So moved.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I said so moved.
And then a roll call.
Williams?
Yes.
Kretschmer?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Nats?
Yes.
Jasper?
Yes.
Corey?
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your good work tonight.
Thank you.
So we'll see everybody again if you're interested on August 12th. The meeting will commence at 7 p.m.